GM Genius is all about showing you how to think rationally, so you're at the top of your fantasy game. Let's recap what we've covered so far, so you continue to use these tips throughout the competition. Weeks 2 through 5 were about getting into the mindset of making good predictions. We covered how to identify what you can influence, be realistic about your chances, avoid wild guesses, and be realistic about players' chances. We started by identifying the difference between things that are completely up to chance, which means they're out of your control, and the things you have the potential to influence. In other words, what you can affect with your skill or knowledge as you set your lineup. Then, to help you be realistic about your chances, we talked about the Dunning-Kruger effect, which happens when we overestimate how good we are at something because we don't realize that it's complex. At this point in the competition, you may feel like you know a lot about fantasy football. But to stay sharp, it's always good to ask yourself, would someone else judge me as an expert? Or do I need to learn and practice more? If so, what do I not know yet? To avoid wild guesses, we suggested you make metacognition a habit. This means thinking about how you're coming up with your predictions. Ask yourself if you considered specific factors, like projections, opponent stats, how coaches have hinted a player will be used, and what happened in recent games. Remember that the point formulas for each position and the additional resources can also help you make more specific predictions about players' point ranges. Next, we encouraged you to make your choices based on what's realistic to happen for a player, not what you wish would happen. To identify what's realistic, do a pre-mortem. Imagine that your prediction was completely wrong. Then, work backwards and ask yourself, what would have been the likely cause of this failure? So you can make changes to your lineup if it seems necessary. Weeks 6 through 8 were about strategizing in depth. We covered how to be honest about what you don't know, be aware of how your preferences affect your predictions, and to be open to changing your mind. You can get more in-depth with your pre-mortems when you're honest about what you don't know. Use the knowledge quadrants and the additional resources to explore your unknowns so you get more specifics. Don't worry about the things that no one can predict. Consider what others may know but haven't revealed, but don't spend too much time trying to guess about it. However, do challenge yourself to identify the things that you don't know but could reasonably find out. Getting more specific knowledge also helps prevent the Dunning-Kruger effect. You're less likely to be overconfident when you're honest about what you don't know, and then try to learn more. Despite having all these new tips for improving our predictions, we still need to watch out for how our oldest preferences can affect them. When you're considering players from your local team, remember how the mere exposure effect takes hold. You get exposure to positive messages about your local team much more than any others, so you develop a preference for your local team. The team becomes part of your identity as time goes on, which brings emotion into any choice involving a player on that team. So to make the best picks and predictions, bench the fan part of you for a little while and think like a general manager. Adopt an all-business mentality that leaves the emotions out of it. Lastly, we talked about being open to changing your mind. Because of the primacy effect, what you hear or see first tends to stick out most in your memory, and you may form an opinion before you hear or search for any information that contradicts it. But if you're simply willing to update your beliefs when you get new information, you'll make better predictions. At this point, you know a lot that can help you be a better fantasy player, but there's still more to learn to fine-tune your game. In weeks 10 through 12, we'll cover how to think about the media you absorb, be aware of how you research, and test your information. So use this recap week to reflect on how you've done so far and revamp your skills, because there's still plenty of time to make your impact on this competition.